Story name, The Eternal Bride. Hollowbrook was a sleepy American village where time seemed to stand still. Cornfields stretched endlessly, and at the edge of the settlement stood a decaying wooden church. Nobody prayed there anymore. The paint had long peeled from its walls, the stained glass windows were cracked, and the roof sagged as if weighed down by sorrow itself. Yet every midnight, villagers swore they saw a figure wandering the graveyard in front of the church, a woman in a flowing white gown, holding a wilted bouquet. Her veil trailed across the ground, her face pale, her lips frozen in grief. They called her the Eternal Bride. A century ago, Evelyn was the daughter of a farmer. She was beautiful, kind, and deeply in love with a young man named Thomas. Their love was pure, and the whole village awaited their wedding day. On a foggy spring morning, Thomas set out across the river to bring flowers for Evelyn's bouquet, but he never returned. The villagers found his boat capsized, drifting against the rocks. His body was never recovered. On the day of the wedding, Evelyn dressed in her gown, believing Thomas would still come. She waited at the altar long after the guests left, her bouquet trembling in her hands. When the candles finally burned out, her heart did too. The next morning, they found her lifeless body, still in the dress, her face frozen in despair. From that day forward, she never left the church. Decades later, a college student named Daniel came to Hollowbrook to stay with relatives. He was curious about the ghost stories, but mostly he was skeptical. The legend of the Eternal Bride fascinated him, perhaps because he had recently lost his own girlfriend in a tragic accident. Grief still lingered in him, a silent emptiness he carried everywhere. One misty night, unable to sleep, Daniel walked toward the abandoned church. The graveyard was silent, except for the sound of the wind whistling through the trees. As he touched the rotting church door, it creaked open, as if inviting him in. Inside, the air was thick and cold. Moonlight streamed through the cracked windows. Then he heard it, the faint sound of footsteps behind him. He turned, and there she was, Evelyn. Her white gown glowed faintly, though tattered and stained. Her veil covered most of her face, but her pale eyes shimmered through. Instead of fear, Daniel felt an ache deep inside his chest. The sorrow in her eyes mirrored his own. "I've been waiting," she whispered. Night after night, Daniel returned. At first he told himself it was curiosity, but slowly he realized it was more. Evelyn never harmed him. Instead, she spoke in a voice fragile like broken glass. She told him about Thomas, about her waiting, about her loneliness that stretched beyond death. And Daniel began to open up too. He told her about his girlfriend, how he blamed himself for her accident, how he wished he could see her one more time. Evelyn listened, and in her ghostly silence he found comfort. Some nights he swore he could feel her touch, a cold hand brushing his cheek, the whisper of her veil against his arm. He should have been terrified, but instead he longed for it. But the villagers noticed. An old priest, Father Miller, confronted him. "You must not go back," the priest warned. "Her sorrow has turned to hunger. She doesn't seek love, she seeks to replace the soul she lost. Every man who has dared grow close to her has vanished." Daniel tried to listen. He locked himself inside, refused to go near the church. But at midnight he heard it. The sound of church bells tolling faintly in the distance, though the bells hadn't rung in years. He felt her calling him. On the seventh night, Daniel gave in. He returned to the church, his heart pounding. This time, Evelyn appeared more radiant than ever. Her gown seemed untouched by time, glowing with moonlight, her veil flowing like mist. She smiled at him, a tender, heartbreaking smile. "You came back," she whispered. "Now we can be together." Before Daniel could reply, she placed the bouquet in his hands, fresh white roses. Their fragrance filled the air, impossible in a village where no roses bloomed. She took his hand and led him to the altar. The broken church seemed alive again. Candles lit by themselves. The organ groaned, and invisible guests whispered in the pews. It was as though time had rewound to Evelyn's wedding night. "Say you'll be mine," she whispered. Daniel, caught in her gaze, whispered, "Yes." Evelyn leaned forward and kissed him. Her lips were cold, yet sweet. For a moment he felt warmth, love, connection, eternity. Then the warmth drained from his body, replaced by ice. He gasped for air, but she held him tight. "You're mine forever," she whispered, as the bells tolled once more. The next morning, villagers found the church doors wide open. Daniel was gone. On the altar lay a fresh bouquet of roses, still damp with dew. From that night forward, villagers said they no longer saw Evelyn wandering alone. Instead, two figures appeared in the graveyard at midnight, a bride and the groom, walking hand in hand beneath the moonlight. Sometimes, if you pass by Hollowbrook Church at night, you'll hear the faint echo of wedding bells, and if you listen closely, you'll hear two voices whispering vows that never end.